Coach, not so much about this game, and I know you when you start the season, you don't go down win loss, but just your thoughts of where your team is at this point going into SEC play, or better than what you thought, or worse than you thought, or just where do you see them stacking up going into SEC play?
That's a good and fair question. I don't spend a lot of time, thinking about that, but it makes sense. The non-conference portion of our season is complete. Now we've got guaranteed 19 SEC games moving forward without any other teams, and then who knows what awaits for us at the end of the season will depend on how we play the rest of the year. But I would say so far so good. We had high expectations for this team, like we've had for all of our teams since we've been here. Certainly, like most years, there a couple games, even when we won, that I wish we would have played better than we did, and certainly, the loss to Butler, they beat us fair and square. I just didn't like how we competed that particular night, and but 30,000 foot view, I'd say, I don't know, B plus, somewhere in that range. I mean, some could say A minus with the record and the numbers and all that, but there's a long way to go, and we're just at the beginning of it.
Second row, Danny Peak, and then we'll go over to Jake up to Coach's right.
Coach Claudette hit 3 threes in that second half, 2 big ones when you were trying to get separation. Just talk about how that affected the game late.
Yeah, he's really rounding into form for us in terms of how we want him to play. His compete level is just really, really good. He's bought into not just being a scorer. It's kind of what he's been the majority of his career before he was here. And his energy, he's probably him and Mook are probably the best talkers we got on defense. And for him to go an entire half and not take a shot, maybe Matt will go look. I can't imagine he's done that very often, knowing his history in his college career. And to me, it's just a great sign of they didn't present themselves to him. He didn't force it. He waited, and they was rewarded with 5 great looks, and he knocked 3 of them down. And like you already mentioned, they were big shots. And I kind of put him in a bad spot. He played too long his first run to start the game after a holiday break. He was out there, I think, for the first 8 or 9 minutes, and I knew I needed to get him out of the game, but because of other reasons, I missed it, and he was a little spent that way. But I love where he's at. He's in a really good spot, and he's gonna be a big part of what we do the rest of the season.
Another big offensive game for Riley and a couple good effort plays as well. What did you see from him tonight?
Obviously, when he was scoring the ball, he was elite. He looked confident, just like he did against Memphis. He looked very confident. I think anyone that's watched us enough knows what I'm talking about. He looked like every time he shot, he thought it was going in, and it almost did. He was 10 for 13. And now the other facets of the game, just live watching it from where I stand, he was just okay. He had 4 turnovers. He tends to, try to make the 2 final pass at times, but he's very unselfish that way. Like, he gets, in my opinion, as much joy out of, setting his teammates up than he does actually scoring the ball. Defensively, we were just okay, and then he definitely was just okay, and had multiple breakdowns and was struggling on that end. But, he scored the ball at a high level, and we really needed that tonight.
Benjamin, the Coach's left.
Things got a little bit chippy at times with all the whistles and fouls, the technicals, especially in that second half. What do you and your staff do when things get like that to keep things under control? And I mean, you're able to go on that run when Thomas, their leading scorer, goes out of the game.
I thought they handled it really well from where I sat in terms of our team. Now, I may think differently when I watch the tape, but even in my conversations with the officials, that was the feedback that I was getting, that we weren't the igniters of anything. And we talk about that various times throughout the season, of not letting your pride get in the way, and not being the second guy. And those are big moments. I mean, one, not being able to participate the rest of the game really hurt their team. He was playing awfully well and scoring the ball, and he's their best 3-point shooter. And it allowed us to, kind of get in the gaps more and shrink the court against, their Freeman out front, who obviously gave us fits with driving the basketball, and the 15 Ward did the same, but not having their best shooters certainly helped them. But, we just try to continue to talk about it, and when it happens in the game, just, talk about it in the timeout of keeping their heads and staying calm and while we're here.
We'll keep it on the left with Paul.
We've talked about Murph a lot this year, but even in games where he's not the focal point of the offense, he's still hitting the boards. How big of a difference is that from last year, just from a mental standpoint of still crashing the boards, even when his offensive game isn't there, more than other games?
I mean, he had 8 points, 9 rebounds, 4 for 6 from the field. It's pretty good. It's 2 assists, 1 turnover. He didn't, have oh my God line, but he had a pretty good line. And for not, like you basically mentioned, being a star of the game, or having maybe takeover moments. But the consistent thing with him for the most part has been just his focus, certainly his rebounding. But it's like what I said the whole summer. It's just been his approach, his consistent approach since he got here in June and all the way through till now. He rarely doesn't have a really good day in practice, and his motor and his work ethic, and everybody in the program knows it. They see him every day, and his compete level is high, and he continues to get rewarded because of it.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go back to Brian, second round, then we'll go back to David. We'll go to David.
First half, they shot 60% from the floor, 62.5 from behind the line. Was it more about them just making shots, or more about what your team wasn't doing defensively in the first half?
Unfortunately, we worked at guarding the ball a lot in the last 3 days, not just because of the Bethune-Cookman game, but they're more of a drive type team, and just wanting to be better at it. It always goes back to that with me, with point of attack, with either one-on-one or ball screen situations, and we felt like that's an area we got to get better at. And going into the game, I felt really good about the practices we've had, about their buy into it and the intensity that they did it in practice. And we've had some really good practices, and I didn't think we were great at it tonight. I think that's why they got the shots that they did for the most part. We had some blown assignments, like the one time one was in the corner and we were supposed to come off him, and Clydell saw a possibility to poke the ball away, and he went all in on it and he missed it, and it gave him, a wide open shot. And we talk about that a lot, of not making mistakes, and all it takes is one shot to go to the net to let him or their team feel better, and it becomes contagious. And getting young people to understand how it can be a avalanche type deal with that is hard to do. But we were just okay, guarding the ball. But they had a lot to do with it. I mean, I think they're a good basketball team. Like, I think they're going to win a lot of games in their league. I mean, when I opened the laptop to start scouting these guys, the first thing I told my staff was that, like, they're a lot better than they were last year. They're a different team. They look cohesive. They look connected. I think I got better players than they did. I mean, those 3 guys that are kind of the leading scorers, Thomas and Freeman and Ward, they're good players. They play a lot of places, and obviously we're going to root for them, but I believe that they're going to win a lot of games.
You complimented the assist this team has 4, but it seems like the pass before the assist, or sometimes the 2 passes before the assist, really seem to be breaking things open. What is it with this guy's chemistry that they know where they are and how to get the ball to each other so quickly?
I think I mentioned this one other time, that we thought as a staff, once we got into more team activities in July, that they were very unselfish, even early, and that made us giddy to think that, hey, this team likes each other already, and coaches love when you have an unselfish team, and that was something that we saw early on, and it's carried over into how we play, and it's a luxury. You're not fighting that sometimes. We got guys that overpass it at times, and I had staff members talking about that in the fall. I'm like, hey, I'd rather have that problem than the other one, and we'll work that out if it gets to be a problem, and I don't feel like it is most of the time in our games, but it's been something that these kids have done since they've arrived.
Anything else